Apakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. The establisher of dharma, the one who is the embodiment of all dharmas, the high divine incarnation, to Sri Ramakrishna, we offer our salutations. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Any Hindu will be familiar with the four goals of life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma means righteousness. Artha means wealth. Kama means the fulfillment of desires. And moksha means liberation, freedom from this relative existence. We are okay with the first three, with righteousness, wealth, and the fulfillment of our desires. But when it comes to moksha or liberation, we push it aside. It will be time to think about it when we are nearing the end of our lives. Then at that time, we can think about being liberated. That's what we normally see in general. It reminds me of a story that Sri Ramakrishna told. He said there was a poor Brahmin who had a son. They were very poor, but the son had the desire to succeed in life, and he was very intelligent. So he wanted to attend school no matter what. So he used to walk for miles, rain or sunshine, going to school with great effort. And whenever he had a test, he used to pray to God, God, please help me pass the test. And he would work very hard as well. And he went on to higher education, and he would always pray to God and work very hard. And eventually he became a lawyer. So he made it from a poor son of a Brahmin priest in a village to becoming a lawyer. Then he had greater ambition. He said, I want to become a judge. And he studied very hard. And he prayed to God, and he became a judge. Then he said, oh Lord, if I could become a member of the Supreme Court, that would be wonderful. I'll work very hard. And he prayed to God, and he became a judge of the Supreme Court. And at the end of his life, when he was on his deathbed, after God granted everything to him, he thought about his life. He looked back on his life and his impending death. And he said to God, oh God, what have I done with my life? And God replies, yes, what have you done? So that is a very interesting story. We pray to God when we need something or when we are in trouble. So that is dharma, artha, kama, righteousness, wealth, and the fulfillment of our desires. Then we resort to God for these things. But moksha, we wait until the end of our lives. And then often it is too late because we don't know when the end of our lives will come. So God says, okay, you want this? Have it. You want that? Have it. And then when you're disappointed and say, what have I done? God says, yeah, what have you done? I just gave you what you wanted. There was a person I knew well who, a very good person, in his late 50s, he got cancer and he was terminal. And we were talking. He was not a devotee, he was just a good person. And he said to me, I never enjoyed life. And it really touched me. And I thought, what a pity. Here is a good person. Here is a good man. He was not planning to die at the end of his 50s, obviously. And then he comes to this conclusion that I didn't enjoy life. What a fool. So that is something that happens now and then. We think we are eternal. We are not planning on these things. So we should live our lives in such a way that we should not have to say that I did not enjoy life. It's an old English couplet that says, what is this life if full of care we have no time to stand and stare? Okay, take your time to look at life, but we are running. We don't stop to stare at the beauty of life. So enjoying life doesn't mean going on expensive holidays or anything like that. Enjoying life is stopping to look around and noticing what's going on. Sometimes it is as simple as that. So, making sense of life is the topic. Benjamin Franklin said that everything is uncertain in life, except two things. You know what it is? It's a well-known quote. Death and taxes. So these two things are certain in life. Everything else is uncertain. But everybody dies and everybody has to pay taxes. If you think about it, there are more things you can add to the list. Okay, he said, everything in life is uncertain except taxes and death. So that means death and taxes are certain. So there is a third thing, uncertainty, because everything else is uncertain. So you can add uncertainty is certain. That's another thing. That we don't know what life will give us. There is no telling. In the scriptures, in Vedanta, they say that life is fickle, unpredictable, and uncertain, like the water on the lotus leaf. Now, you may have noticed when it rains, after the rain, the plants, the drops of water, sometimes they cling to the tip of the leaf as if they don't want to fall off. That's the property of water. It clings to surfaces because of its molecular composition. But the lotus leaf is an exception. It's super hydrophobic. That means the surface of the lotus leaf is designed in such a way by nature that it doesn't interact with the water molecule. The water just runs off, all of it. There is no residue. So some sage in the old days in India, they noticed this and they said, oh, the water doesn't stick to the lotus leaf. So when you see water on the lotus leaf, that is like our lives. It can roll off anytime. It's very uncertain. It's very fragile. So life is uncertain like water on the lotus leaf. Another thing that we can add to the list of certain things in life is confusion. Confusion is a certainty. Life is confusing. If you look at the animal kingdom or the vegetal kingdom, the plants and animals, how many ways do you have to be a dog or a cow? A dog will behave like a dog. If they're happy, they will wag the tail. If they are threatening, they will growl and bark. So a dog or a cat or a cow, they're very predictable. We know how they will behave. But a human being, there's a huge range of possibilities of what a human being wants to do with their lives. There's so much variety. We have the whole range of the highest, most divine behavior and the lowest, more demonic behavior is possible for a human being. We see that. Sometimes we say, these people behave worse than animals. Because animals, they will not inflict, they will not be cruel for the sake of cruelty. But human beings can do that. An animal may fight for food. That is the instinct. But the human being can be cruel just because the nature of that person is to be cruel. The same way, an animal can be unselfish, but it's again instinct. Because of its offspring, it can sacrifice itself for the offspring. But the human being can do that just because they are unselfish. They don't gain anything by that. So the human being is capable of the highest and the lowest. There's a nice story about this. There are 4 yugas in the Hindu mythology. You have Satya Yuga, you have Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So somebody described all these yugas in the following way. When it is Satya Yuga, the golden age, everything is peaceful, there is no conflict. So the gods and the demons, they are in different worlds. The gods are in heaven, the demons are in hell, in the lower regions, and there is peace in the world. That's the Satya Yuga. Then you have the Treta Yuga. There is a little more conflict. There is a little friction in the world. So they say the gods and the demons inhabit the same world. And the example given is Rama is in Ayodhya, Ravana is in Lanka. And there are skirmishes here and there. There's a little fighting here and there. They're in the same world, but in different countries. That is the second. Dwapara Yuga, the third one, there is more conflict, more unrest, more confusion. The demons and the gods are in the same family. And the example is Krishna and Duryodhana. So the Kauravas and the Pandavas, they belong to the same family. And there is always friction and quarrel because they are fighting for the same kingdom. But then comes Kali Yuga, the dark age, our present age. There is most unrest, most darkness. So they say the gods and the demons are in the same person. So what can you expect? This is the Kali Yuga. So we have a God in us and we have a demon in us. And we see that in different people. We can manifest whatever we want. But the animals, they are like programmed to perform in a certain way and they follow that. They cannot help it. A cow cannot help being a cow and a cat cannot help being a cat. But a human being has a wide range of choice. What do we want to do with our lives? What do we want to be? Krishna said, there's a lot of confusion in this world. If you go one way, somebody will threaten you with a broomstick. If you go another way, somebody will come with a shoe to threaten you. Another way, somebody will run at you with a shovel. So he said, there is a lot of confusion in this world. Another thing he said was, in this world of Maya, you cannot accurately predict what will happen. You know, when you go to the lab, you mix one substance with another, and you will get the same result every time. Hydrogen and oxygen, you get water. The proper ratio, you mix them and you get water. But in our lives, it's more unpredictable. Sometimes we do something good with the best intention, and we find the result is not really good. Sometimes we say, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. And the result is good. It just things happen in such a way that it turns out good. And somebody cooks something and say, oh, Swami, that is terrible. And I said, no, I love it. So, you know, it turned out good. So there are so many variables in our lives, our karma, our current karma, our past karma, that is very hard to predict what will happen in our lives. So there's a lot of confusion. Another thing we can add to the list of certain things in our lives is hardship. There is hardship in our lives. There's no question about that. You see the small kid trying to learn the alphabet, how they're fully focused. A, B, C, so much effort. That's just the beginning. So much struggle. And then that goes on throughout our lives. Early this year, one of our members of the Vedanta Society passed away. She was in her mid-90s. She had been a lifelong Vedanting and very, very spiritual person. And I used to go to visit her once a week to help her a little bit. And I could see her struggle just to get up to get to the restroom. She has to summon all her physical strength and all her willpower just to get up and walk a few steps. And I was thinking, there is no end to this struggle. From the time we're born till the very end, we have to struggle. You would think that after living a long, fruitful, and spiritual life, okay, give them a break. Please, God, let them have an easy time. No. Struggle till the very end. There is no escape. So that is another certainty that we have to struggle in life. So we try to make sense of life. We have all this confusion, uncertainty, and struggle. And we have so many desires to fulfill. You know, from the time we are born, when the baby is born, what happens? It cries. It's not just a little whining. It is like, wow, you know, it's like full capacity cry. So the baby obviously is not happy. So the doctor knows as quickly as possible, we should put the baby in the mother's arms. It is very important for the baby to have contact with the mother. So when the moment they put the baby in the mother's arms, that warmth, the baby is pacified. You know, it's like, okay, keeps quiet for a while. But then the baby gets hungry, and again it cries. And the mother begins to nurse the baby, and it is pacified, it keeps quiet. So this pattern starts from our very birth. We cry, then we get something that, okay, makes us quiet. Then we cry again. Then again we become quiet. So as we grow up, this pattern continues. I want something to be happy. I don't cry anymore as a grown-up, but my mind cries. I can hear that. It is shouting, I want this, I want that. And it won't let me in peace. So the mind is that baby crying. I want this, I want that, please. I want to get married. Then I will be happy. So we get married and we're happy, but not permanently. It lasts for some time. Then we want something else. I want to have kids. Then we have kids and it gives us some satisfaction, but only for some time. So I want to succeed in life. I want to get this, I want to get that. And that is how our lives are spent. From the time we're born until we die. So we rarely stop to think, what is the meaning of all this? Why am I doing this? Why am I living this life? What is the purpose? And even at the deeper level, who am I? Who is this being that was born and will die, and for some time is living this life? Who am I? That is what Ramana Maharshi used to teach, Atma Vichara. Ask yourself, who am I? Who is the thinker? Who is the experiencer? If you go deeper and deeper, you will find that it's not this body, it's not this mind, it's not this ego even. It is the self, it is Brahman, it is the Atman. It is timeless, it is formless, it is immortal. That is the teaching of Vedanta. But we are very far from that. If somebody asks, who are you? We will say, okay, I'm so-and-so. This is my gender, this is my age, and this is my qualification, and anything, nationality. If somebody says, what is the goal of your life? Well, to be happy, to have a family, to be successful in life. But one thing is to have a goal, and another thing is to have a purpose. There are short-term goals that we all have. Even as a Swami, I have a goal. I have to give a talk, I have to prepare. Then my goal tomorrow will be to get to the airport. Then I get there and I have to fix lunch immediately. So we have these short-term goals. And then where is the purpose of our lives? That is the question. In the old days, it was easier because religion was so prominent in society. It was so prominent in our lives that religion told us why we live and how to live. It was fairly straightforward. Why we live? Okay, the Bible tells you this is why you live. God created the world and Adam and Eve, etc., etc. And how to live? Oh, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. Fairly straightforward. But in modern times, society has changed. And religion has given way to science. So now the scientists are the high priests. We will respect them. It's the Bible truth. If so-and-so said this, then we have to listen. Who will listen to the Pope or, a priest? Nowadays, that is an old-fashioned concept for the majority of society. We want to hear from science and we trust science. So with the rise of scientific thought, religion was pushed aside. And now we are left with a vacuum. Why? What is the purpose of life? Why are we alive? So if you ask religion, if you ask science, it's a very bleak reply. What is the purpose of life? Oh, the survival and propagation of your genetic material. Well, that doesn't sound very appealing. It's a biological definition. It reminds me of a joke. A patient was very ill in the hospital. He was afraid he may die. So he asked the doctor, doctor, what happens after we die? And the doctor said, we clean the bed and accept a new patient. So it's a truthful answer. We clean the bed and accept a new patient after you die. But of course, the question was from the point of view of the individual. I'm a human being. I have this personality, this history, these relationships in this world, and now I'm staring at death. What happens next? Nobody will be satisfied with that answer, that we clean the bed and admit a new patient. So when science says is the propagation and preservation of your genetic material, it's just like that. It's a very materialistic way to look at the question of what happens to us after death. But it is true. It is a truthful answer, but it can never satisfy us. Just like the doctor's answer is truthful, but it's kind of makes no sense to us, that kind of answer. So if we identify with matter alone, then we'll certainly die, and that's the end of it. There is no way that matter can survive death. If we are something else, then we are okay. We'll be okay, and we don't need to be afraid. So it all depends on our point of view, how we look on the world and how we look on ourselves. There's a nice couplet of Kabir. It says, seeing the chalti chakki, the grinding stones in the mills, in the old-fashioned mills in India, Kabir cries, because whatever falls between the two stones will be destroyed. So he saw these grinding stones, two round, huge stones. One is fixed on the ground, and the other one rotates over it. And they put some grains in the middle. There is a hole. They put the grains, and these grains are caught between the two wheels, and they are ground into flour. So Kabir saw that, and he made this couplet that these two stones is duality, is relativity, is this world of multiplicity. Anything that falls in this duality will be destroyed. There is no exception. So Kabir cries, because that is the fate of everything material. But the thing is, we are not matter. So we don't need to be afraid. Sri Ramakrishna gave another similar example. Again, he said, the grinding stones, they're grinding the grains. And the grains will be turned to powder, to flour. But Sri Ramakrishna said, there is a peg at the center of the stones that keeps them in place. And a few grains fall at the place of the peg, and they are spared. They are not ground. So he said, God is that peg. If you're close to God, these grinding stones cannot kill you, cannot destroy you. So he said, take refuge in God and you will be okay. So the body will die. But are we the body? You know, Sri Krishna says in the Gita, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani, which means just as a person gives up worn out cloths and puts on new ones, in the same way, the embodied soul discards an old body and enters a new one. Now think about it. When your shirt gets torn, you throw it away and put on a new one. How much thought do you give to that? We have discarded how many shirts in our lives? Have we kept track of it? We have no idea. It's such an insignificant matter. So the Gita says, giving up the body is just like that. You discard an old garment and put on a new one. You discard an old body and enter a new one. It's just like that. Another verse of the Gita, Sri Krishna says, Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, which means even a little of this dharma, even a little of this understanding will save us from the great fear of death. But it's no wonder that people who are materialistic will be afraid. If we think we are the body, we will try to preserve it at all costs, and then we are facing destruction. So what are we going to do in the meantime? How to make our lives meaningful? How to make sense of life? You know, researchers have found that people who find purpose in life have a better quality of life. That is very consistent in their research. It has nothing to do with spirituality, but finding a purpose. What I mean to say is, has nothing to do with formal religion, but a higher purpose in life will help us enormously. They say that people will have less depression, less confusion, and will be more contented, more fruitful in their lives. To give you an example, you know, the Marines are a very elite part of the army. So to join the Marines is something special. And people undergo very grueling training to become a Marine. So you see sometimes the movies or documentaries how the drill sergeant is shouting in their faces and humiliating them and pushing them to the limit, physically and mentally. So it's not fun to train to be a Marine, and many fail. But still they do it. Why do they subject themselves to that very demanding, very painful training? Because they want to be a Marine. So you're willing to pay the price. You have a purpose. And that purpose helps you go through it, through that experience. If you want to be a Marine, you have to pay the price. And you have that motivation, that meaning, that purpose that I want to be a Marine. So no matter what happens, I want to succeed. So you can translate that to our lives, anything that we do. Life is hard. Life is difficult. Life is challenging. If you have a purpose, that will help you through. I will go through this because I have a purpose, because it's worth it, because it has a meaning. The same painful training without meaning, it becomes a torture. And when I was young, I was conscripted in the army, and I had to spend more than a year. And we all were in the same area of the army, and we all hated the army, okay, everybody of us. And the training was not very demanding, but we did as little as possible, as badly as possible. And why? It's because we were conscripts, we were drafted, we were forced to do it. We didn't want to be there. We didn't find any meaning in that. For us, it was a waste of time that we would rather be doing something else, especially because the army was pretty hopeless as well. That doesn't help. So it's a hopeless, you can see that they're ill-equipped, ill-trained, and you start thinking, what's the point? If anybody wants to invade us, this is pointless. So what makes the difference in how we cope with anything is the sense of purpose that we find in that. So finding meaning in our lives, making sense of life, having an idea that why am I alive? It's fundamental to being happy in our lives. So the Psychologists say that our goals change as we age. When we are young, we are looking for meaning. We are looking for purpose. So I want to succeed in my career. I want to form a family. That is my purpose. That is my drive. That is why I am alive. Now I am a dad. Now I am a husband. Now I am the boss in the office. That keeps me going. So that's fine. But then what they noticed is, as we age, when we retire, then that part of our personality is gone. That part of our identity is gone. I am no longer the boss in the office, and people who used to be so different to me and look up to me, now they don't call me anymore. They don't care. You know, even if I go and say, hey, I used to be the CEO of this company, nobody cares. It's past, you know. We are now looking for the new CEO. You are gone. So what happens is then the relatives begin to die, you know, people age, and then their friends and relatives begin to die naturally. And something happens that later in life, we have to revisit our goals and find out a new purpose, because the kids are gone. My social life is not what it used to be. And I am retired. What am I going to do with my life? It's a very common problem. Now, some people say, okay, I'll play golf and go to parties. Well, that is one solution if you like. But if you're thoughtful, you start wondering, why? What next? What am I going to do now? I had a family. I had a successful career. What am I going to do? So the psychologists say that later in life, after having searched for purpose and acquired purpose, then again we lose it, and again we start the search. So it comes back to the starting point. Later in life, again, we have to search for purpose. So then is the time to look for a higher purpose. At least, you know, it's never too late. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, do this as well as that. Now, it's a very cryptic teaching. Huh? Sounds like Zen. Do this as well as that. It could be anything. What does that mean? Well, it's not that you need to retire to the forest and become an ascetic. The idea is, go on with your life. Do everything you have been doing so far. All that is this world. Do this. But Sri Ramakrishna adds one more thing, as well as that. What is that? The search for a higher purpose. So do this as well as that. Deal with this world. Achieve whatever desires you have. There is nothing wrong with that. Sri Krishna says in the Gita, I am desire that is not contrary to dharma. So God has given all these desires to us. We cannot uproot them. Okay, go for it. Do this as well as that. The problem is we only do this and we forget that. That is the problem. And we say, oh no, you know, Vedanta, I cannot devote myself only to that. Nobody's telling you to do that. The idea is to combine, to bring some spirituality into our lives. Everything continues as before, but we add something else. We add a new dimension. We do that as well as this. And something mysterious happens when we do that. When I do that, meaning I meditate, I pray, I try to be unselfish, I try to find the meaning of life through some kind of spiritual purpose. When I do that, it improves this, meaning my life in this world. It's kind of mysterious. Why would meditation on God help me in my work? How is it possible that sitting quietly and meditating and praying to God will help me in my relationships? It does. It just does. It works. If we can touch the inner spirit in us, it will manifest and help us in this world as well. So when you do this as well as that, that will help with this. Having a spiritual purpose will help our secular life. But, the common excuse is, oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy. I'm too distracted. That reminds me of a story. There was a man cutting down a tree, a big tree, with an axe. And he had been going on for a long time. He was sweating and getting tired, and he didn't seem to be making much progress. So his neighbors saw him and came to him and said, my friend, I see that you have been working very hard trying to cut down the tree, but you are not making much progress. I think your axe is blunt. You need to sharpen it. So the man said, look at this huge tree. I know the axe is blunt, but look at all the work I have to do. Where is the time to sharpen the axe? So that is when we say, we don't have time to meditate. Where is the time? If we did it, it will help us do everything better. Not just realize God, but everything will be improved in our lives. It's the same mind that meditates on God and then goes to the office to work. If we can be in touch with God, that will help in every aspect of our lives. So, to find the purpose in life or the real meaning of life, that why we are alive, Vedanta says you need to have a spiritual experience. You need to attain super consciousness. So until that happens, we will always be perplexed by life. It will never fully make sense to us as creatures, as jivas, as human beings in ignorance. We will never be able to figure out exactly why we're here. There's a nice story about this. There was a mother doing some embroidery, okay? And her child wanted to play with her. So she was a young girl, she was looking up to the mother, and she's, doing the embroidery. And she says, Mother, what is all that? It looks ugly, all these threads hanging. What are you doing? It looks ugly. Then the mother says, wait, give me a minute and I will finish. I said, what is there? Some threads hanging? Then the mother says, look, I finished. And she turns it around. And she said, oh, it's a beautiful landscape that my mother has embroidered. But from below, it looks like some threads are hanging. When the mother turns it around, she says, oh, now I see, now I understand. So the meaning of life in Vedanta is like that. When we become illumined, at once, the Divine Mother says, look, this is what it is like. This is the meaning. But until we attain superconsciousness, we can never really fathom the real purpose of life. So what can help us? If that is the case, if we cannot understand the meaning of life, what is the solution? Until we become illumined, which it will take a while. So what are we going to do then? Vedanta says there are certain ways that we can find meaning in life. We can do our own homespun philosophy of life, each one of us. Figure out why am I alive and what I want from life. the most obvious resource is the scriptures. When you read the spiritual literature, you will get ideas of what is the purpose of life. So if you, for instance, read the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, he says again and again that the purpose of life is to realize God. Now that's, again, the same thing, is super consciousness. It's not easy to attain. But you come across many ideas that can be put into practice and given certain direction to our lives. When somebody asked Jesus, when is the kingdom of God coming? His answer was, he didn't give any date that it will come such and such a day, or it will be in such and such a place. His answer was, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Now, that was true in the times of Jesus and is true today. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It's up to us to find out that kingdom of heaven within it, all of us. When Holy Mother said, no one is a stranger, the whole world is your own, it's the same thing. It's not that it was only applicable in a village in Bengal 100 years ago. It's the same thing you can apply today in Dallas, that no one is a stranger. Everybody is my own. That's a great teaching, that it can really change our lives. When you feel that somebody is your own, your attitude will be different. Take, for instance, a mother and her children. For the mother, the children are beautiful and smart, and probably the smartest and most beautiful kids. But that may be far from the reality, okay? But try to explain it to the mother. Nobody will dare even to bring it up, because the kids are very smart and very, very beautiful for the mother. So any shortcomings in the kids, the parents will have the tendency to overlook, because they're my kids and I love them. So when we make somebody our own, we will have the same tendency to overlook their shortcomings. You are my own. How can I see your defects? How can I fight with you if we are one, if you are my relative? That's another way. You see, these are all ideas that we get in the scriptures to try to figure out how to live our lives. Sri Ramakrishna tells another story, Ramericha. So you all have heard that story. There was a weaver, and he was a pious man, and he always used to say Ramericha, the will of God. So somebody came to buy the sacred thread that he used to spin on the wheel and sell in the market. Somebody came to buy that, and they would ask, what is the price? And the weaver would say, well, by Rama's will, the cost is 1 rupee. By Rama's will, my profit is whatever, 4 annas. So by Rama's will, the price is 1 rupee, 4 annas. And everybody would pay without even bargaining, because he's a holy man. So once some robbers came and they looted the house and at night, and this weaver, they saw him resting on the veranda outside his house. And they had a heavy bundle of things that they had stolen. And they say, you fellow, you carry this, and put it on his shoulders and force him to carry the bundle for them. Then the police arrived on the scene, and all the thieves fled, and the weaver was left with the bundle. So the police detained him, took him to jail, thinking that he was the robber. So the next day, he appeared before the judge, and the judge said, what happened? Tell me. So he said, well, by Rama's will, I was resting outside my house on the veranda. By Rama's will, these robbers came along and they forced me to carry their bundle. By Rama's will, I was put in jail overnight. And by Rama's will, I am here before you this morning. Then the judge said, oh, this is a holy man, release him. He couldn't have done any wrong. So when he came out of the prison, the friends, congratulated him. And he said, by Rama's will, I was released. So he had this attitude that if it is bad, well, it is God's will. If it is good, it is also God's will. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, that we can have that attitude in our lives. Try to remember God and trust God. Everything happens for a reason. It may seem not to make sense. As we said, life is confusing, life is unpredictable. Sometimes nothing seems to make sense, but God has a purpose. God knows better what is good for us. So these are all ideas that we can get from the scriptures. And when we read the scriptures every day, we can get a lot of ideas like this. So they will remind us how we can live a life in this world, trying to live purposeful lives and avoid suffering. We will have to suffer, but at least we should make sure that we are not inflicting suffering on ourselves. There is enough. We don't need to add to it. So if we read these teachings and try to put them into practice, at least the amount of self-inflicted suffering will be reduced considerably. We cannot avoid suffering, but we don't need to add to it. Another resource that we have is a guru, is a teacher. If we accept somebody to help us, they will help us. And they can tell us what is good for us. They can guide us. In Vedanta, it's a very important part of our tradition that the human being, his capacity is limited. How much can we do? And the guru is supposed to be an illumined soul. So it's like a lighted candle lighting another candle. That flame is passed from one candle to another. So that is another thing that can help us in our life. If we are lucky enough to encounter a person that we can accept as a teacher, then we can be benefited from that. Even if you don't want a guru, you can have upagurus, that is secondary gurus. What that means is trying to learn from everybody in this world. Our scriptures say that the Avaduta, he had 24 gurus. He said, the earth is my guru. How come the earth is my guru? Well, we do so many things to the earth. We dig holes and we do fracking and whatnot, and the earth doesn't complain. So just be like the earth, be patient, don't react. You can be like a tree, giving shade and fruits and not asking anything in return. So like that, the Avaduta learned many lessons from many teachers. We can have that attitude. Let me learn from everybody. Whoever comes into my life could be considered a teacher, even somebody who is unspiritual. We can learn what not to do from them, or we can learn patience and forbearance from them by being kind to them. So these are all ideas that can help us find meaning in life. From the highest point of view, Vedanta says it's all a play, it's all a lila. All this drama of life that seems to be so serious for us, sometimes is overwhelming. Vedanta says it's a divine play. The Divine Mother is having fun with us. There's nothing but play. Sri Ramakrishna said a child makes a house of cards, and if you touch it, they will be mad. Don't touch it. This is my house of cards. And they make it very carefully, spend hours doing it. And then the next minute, they do like this with the hand and everything collapses. It's like the play is over. Why do they do that? Just for fun. So Sri Ramakrishna said, God has the nature of a child. God likes to play in this world. And from our limited perspective, we can never make any sense of it. The closest approximation is that this is a divine play, and the Divine Mother is having fun with us. So we can finish with a quote from Rumi, the Sufi saint. He said, "It is rigged. Everything in this world is rigged. It is rigged in your favor, so you have nothing to worry about." So this is exactly what Vedanta teaches as well. We are all destined to be free. We are all destined to become one with God. We can't help it because we came from God. So even the worst atheist, even the worst sinner, even the worst human being is destined to go back to God eventually. It's a matter of time. So this is a beautiful teaching from Rumi, that everything is rigged in our favor. Everything is conspiring to help us attain illumination. It seems to be the opposite, okay? It seems that everything in this world is designed to take us away from God. But here is a saint saying, everything in this world is designed to take you to God, not away from God. We just lack the understanding to see that reality. We think, oh, this is suffering and this is an unpleasant situation. It may be so, but that is how God is drawing us to her. Sometimes through suffering, sometimes through happiness. Anyway, I gave you some ideas about making sense of life. I think we are more or less, an hour has passed. So you want to ask any questions? Go ahead. Yes.
Nice there. This and that, this part seems like a lot of practical stuff that we read up in, and that is probably a lot of faith that we have to kind of invest in. And in a setting like this, where we have people who are probably trying to do that all the time, it seems to make a lot of sense that that's what that would require. But as soon as you step out in the real world, this becomes so difficult that is taken every time you try to apply it.
Yes.
And what's the way to probably balance it or strengthen that so that this doesn't really come and hit back at you and test your faith every time you try to practice it?
Yeah, I think that the secret is to try to incorporate into our lives that. And Sri Ramakrishna gave a lot of freedom. He never said you have to eat this or eat that, or you have to sleep so many hours, or you have to do this austerity. He gave a lot of freedom. You know, one of his sayings was, "Khave gorom, shobe norom." So sleep on a soft mattress and eat hot food. I mean, don't need to eat stale, cold food or lie on the floor. So his stress was, what is going on the mind, in the mind? He said, monete bodho, monete mukto. We are free in the mind and we are bound in the mind. So what really matters is what's going on in our minds, not so much what we do or the kind of work we do. So to answer your question, I think the key is to somehow bring that into our daily lives. And if we can make a routine that includes some kind of activity of a spiritual nature, that will help us a lot. Without that, in a haphazard way, that one day you hear some inspiring talk from somebody, or you read a book and you got some teaching, and then for a few days you practice and then again you give up, that is not very helpful. We need something that will make a difference in our lives. Just like there are things that we cannot do without. We have to eat every day. We have to work every day. So in the same way, we have to, whatever it is, do some selfless work, or meditate, or read the scriptures, whatever appeals to you. Try to make it part of your daily life. And as we proceed with that, it will become more natural, especially if it is meditation. Meditation is very hard at the beginning, but if we persevere, that is the number one discipline that the teachers prescribe to make spiritual progress. Meditation is very important. If we can meditate every day, that will make that will help us enormously in our lives. Without doing a little bit of sadhana every day, it becomes more challenging. It's more difficult. So even if it is a few minutes, it's better than nothing.
We have a question online. Says that how the superconsciousness is not to consider as a thing to achieve, the same way as it is something to achieve in the material world. So how is it different to achieve something in the material world against attaining superconsciousness?
That's a good question. When you try to achieve something in the material world, it's the realm of time and space, of cause and effect. And it's the ego trying to achieve something in that realm. When you try to attain a superconscious state, it is something beyond time and space, name and form, cause and effect. If it is different from cause and effect, there is nothing you can do to achieve it. Because whatever you do is the cause, and the superconscious state will be the effect of that cause. You can never achieve the superconscious state by doing something. So what is the solution? Sri Ramakrishna gave an example. He said, a man was cutting down a tree with the axe, and he went on until there was very little left. And then he moved aside, and the tree started cracking and fell by itself. He didn't have to do the last bit. It just happened. So what happens when we attain superconsciousness is something similar. We try to meditate. We try to live a spiritual life. We try so many things. But then in the end, the result is out of our hands. It happens by an act of grace. That in the end, that superconscious state dawns on us as if, it can happen anytime. It will not happen when we are meditating. It can be at any other time. So that is the idea. We cannot achieve it like anything else in the material world that we can do, because it's beyond cause and effect. At the same time, the teachers tell us, the scriptures tell us, that on a pure mind, that knowledge is reflected. So how to purify the mind? We do our sadhanas. We try to be unselfish. We try to overcome all the limitations that we have in our minds, in our psyche. As we progress, the mind becomes purer and purer. The mind is like a mirror, and Brahman is like the sun. That sun will become reflected in the mirror. Then we can see, oh, this is superconscious. But then there's no one to see. The ego is dissolved. So it's beyond cause and effect and beyond duality. So there is nobody to say, oh, I am now superconscious. You become one with it. You don't know it like you would know anything else in the world. So it's knowledge through union. It's being and becoming. It's not acquiring something. It is becoming something. The drop merges into the ocean. Can you get back the drop? No. You can get the ocean, but not the drop. The drop is gone.
Swami, my question is that what is the proof that if the after the death, the soul goes from one body to another body?
Well, there is no proof as such. You know, that is the question that Nachiketa asked Yama in the Katha Upanishad. What happens after death? Some people say that that is the end of it. And some people say that the soul continues to exist after death. Please tell me, you are the God of death. There is no one more suitable than you to answer this question. Please tell me, what is the truth? And Yama tries to wriggle out of it. Oh, please, I'll give you a kingdom. I'll give you long life. I'll give you so many things. Don't ask me this question, please, please, please. But Nachiketa says, no, this is what I want. I want to know what happens after death. Then Yama proceeds to teach him that yes, the soul continues to exist after death. So we only have the testimony of the scriptures, the Shruti, you know. That is a pramana, that is a proof, but you have to believe. It's a matter of faith. Nobody can show us what happens after death, but the sages of the past experienced that, and there's a record of that experience in the scriptures, and we believe that is true. Other than that, there is no real proof. But when you accept the doctrine, then so many things make sense in this world. Like why somebody has to suffer and somebody enjoys life. Why somebody is born with all the advantages and somebody is born with all the disadvantages. It is all explained by the past karma of previous lives. So it seems that when you accept reincarnation and the soul outlives the body, then the world seems to make more sense. Whatever is injustice and unfair in the world seems to make more sense. Anyway. Yes. Okay.
Things that were certain and death, hardship, confusion, uncertainty, and taxes. All very enjoyable. So somebody who's a believer, is there anything that is positive that is more encouraging?
Yeah. I mean, it's good to start at a very low point and go higher. So we started with all the negative things, but of course, it's all relative. If you talk with an optimistic person who has a positive attitude, they will tell you life is wonderful. And if you talk with somebody who has a negative attitude, for them life is rotten no matter what. Somebody asked somebody, what day is today? And they said, oh, today is July 7th. And the other person said, isn't that terrible? So anything you can find terrible. On the other end of the spectrum, there was a positive thinker who always look at the bright side. He was walking with his friends, and he was always looking at the good things of life, giving a positive twist. So the friends used to tease him because of that. So they were walking along, and then a bird, he got a dropping on his forehead. And the friend said, "What are you going to say to that?" And he said, "Thank God, cows don't fly." So always trying to look at the positive. So I think it's good to be realistic. There is good and bad. There is taxes and there is uncertainty and all that. And all the positive, there is a lot of positive in the world, but the main thing comes from within us. There's positive and negative, okay? It's what we project that makes most of the difference. The world is 50%, and the other 50% is our reaction to the world, to what is outside. So those who focus on the negative, they will have that kind of mind. Those who focus on the positive, they will have that kind of mind. Vedanta says, step back and just be detached. Just perceive it is plus and minus, good and bad. It's all the divine play. Just try to be detached and try to love and serve everybody. So that is the positive thing, that there is love in this world, and we can try to give love to others. We can try to help others in whichever way we can. That's one way to find meaning in life. We still will have to pay the taxes. And life will still be uncertain. But if we are detached, we are ready. So something bad happens, but I was almost like ready for it because I am detached. I will not be shaken by that. So the trick is to strengthen ourselves. You know, the important thing is, as we said earlier, to do something in our lives so that we can become spiritually strong. And when is the time to do that? When there is not much going on in our lives. Life is boring, day to day, going to work, feeding the kids, and just going on. That is the time to make spiritual progress. When the crisis comes, we have to deal with the crisis. So there is a tree that is growing, and a storm comes. And if the tree is not very strong, it will uproot it. If the tree is strong, it will bend, but it will not be broken. It will bend. So we have to strengthen ourselves when there is no storm. When the storm comes, it's too late. And so the trick is to grow spiritually day to day, monotonous, boring life. And when the crisis comes, we are ready.
Only the gospel story about two people asking how close are we to realization?
Yes, Narada.
It's just,
yes.
It's just attitude.
Yeah, it's just attitude. Absolutely, absolutely.
Which you started.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yes.
Hello, Maharaj. My question is, so you were saying about Atma Vichar, right? So is there any way one can perceive this Atma? But if not, why is it? I got one more question. And they also say that, you know, in the process of self-inquiry, so how do we measure our progress in terms of like how spiritually are we growing or are we regressing? So it's a two question. One is like, can we see Atma? The other one is like, how do you measure the spiritual progress?
Yeah. Again, these type of questions, you have to refer to the scriptures. What did the sages say? They said, yes, you can realize the Atman, you can see the Atman, you can see God. Sri Ramakrishna said, you can see God more clearly than you can see a person before you. The perception is much more unmistakably clear. So you can see a personal God, you can see the self, the Atman, and all that, but nobody will be able to show you. Somebody came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, I hear that you experience samadhi, something like that. Can you show me? Sri Ramakrishna said, no, I can't show you samadhi. You have to practice, you have to do it yourself. Shankaracharya says in the Vivekachudamani, a father has his children to pay his debts, but he has nobody but himself to free himself from Maya. So there are certain things that others can do for us. They can feed you, they can pay your debts, but liberation, nobody can liberate you. We have to do it ourselves. So when you say, can we see the Atman? Yes, but you have to work for it. Nobody can show it to you. So the only thing that we have is what the scriptures say, what the sages have said. They have said, yes, we have realized, and you can realize it as well. That is the first question. The second question was, how do we know that we are making spiritual progress? And the answer is, somebody asked Holy Mother that same question. And she said, why do you want to focus on knowing whether you are making progress or not? You keep trying. You don't need to worry about how much progress you're making or not. The key is to keep trying, because we have been told that if you do this, you will make spiritual progress. What difference does it make where I am? Have I advanced half a mile or 2 miles? I'm still not there. So just keep walking. So Holy Mother said that our focus should be on what is the right thing to do. And how much progress we are making is very hard to judge, hard to know. Sometimes it looks as if we are not making progress, and we are. So one of our Swamis gave an example. Imagine that something is going upwards, but in an undulating fashion. So when you are going down, it seems that like you are going lower. But in fact, when you look at the long trend, it is going up, but by going up and down. So sometimes the mind, it feels like, how come I'm trying, and the harder I try, the mind, the more difficult to control it becomes. It's because you're just going down for the time being, but then you will come up higher. So it's not a straight line, spiritual life. We have a lot of things in our minds that we are not aware of in our subconscious. As we meditate, we become aware, oh, I have this, I have that. And we can see also our shortcomings. And okay, I have to correct this, I have to correct that. So if we find that we have something to correct, it doesn't mean that we are going back. We are going backwards. It just means that we have encountered an obstacle and we are stopped for the time being, and then we'll continue when we deal with that obstacle. It's very hard to tell. Just keep going. That is the advice from Holy Mother. Just keep trying. Yeah.
Well, a question on free will. So in the realm of karma, we are based on what we have done in the past, and we will be what we will do now. But we know that the enlightened soul has told us that we are actually not doing it. We are just a medium or mystery. So at that level, we know that is true. That is what we have faith in. Why we are not there? So how do we reconcile? Because then the karma effect is kind of, if we are really not doing it and it's being done, then what is the action and what are we going to do? So that part.
Yeah, free will is always a perplexing subject. Somebody asked that question to Sri Ramakrishna. So, sir, do we have free will? And his answer is very surprising. He says, so long as we are not illumined, we feel we have free will, which seems to be a contradictory thing. So long as we are ignorant, we feel there is free will. When we become illumined, we realize there is no such thing as free will. How can you explain that? Well, it's not that difficult. An illumined soul, they see the world from a very high perspective. From their point of view, every one of us is God, and we are just playing a part. Somebody's playing the part of a murderer, somebody's playing the part of a saint. Now, say you're going to watch a movie. Will you be mad at the villain? No, it's a movie. The poor guy is an actor. He's not a real villain. So nobody will put him in jail for being the villain and killing somebody in the movie. He will not go to jail, nothing will happen. So in the same way, when the realized soul looks at the world, they see God everywhere, just playing a part. Where is the free will? It's the Divine Mother pulling the strings, and we are all puppets. But if we are in ignorance in this world, then we feel we have free will. And, you know, ahamkara, egotism, is a consequence of avidya, so ignorance. From ignorance comes ego. So to feel that we have free will is proof that we are ignorant. And so that is, Sri Ramakrishna, this is a very deep answer.
Okay, that is very difficult to like something. If you want to achieve for universal welfare, if they think that that is really required, and no one tries it, they think that anyway it's not free, it's not.
No, because to have that attitude and to really experience that reality, you have to be illumined. Otherwise, we are just, it's like when somebody closes the eyes and says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Okay? Sri Ramakrishna said, that is not right. You are doing all kinds of things in this world, and then you sit and say, I'm Brahman. It will not work. So the proof is, okay, you're Brahman. What happens when you have a toothache? Can you sit and say, I'm Brahman? No. You will try to get the earliest appointment with the dentist. Where is Brahman? Brahman is forgotten. That is our reality. So when you say, oh, there is no free will, no, the reality is, okay, there is no free will. What are you going to do about the toothache? My very own free will, I will dial the number and go to the dentist. So it's not the truth, it's not our reality, it's not the truth. Sri Ramakrishna can say that. There is no free will. And it is God doing everything. We cannot say that. God has given us the consciousness that our actions have consequences. He has given us that awareness. So if I do something good, I'll be happy and peaceful. And if I do something bad, I will suffer the consequences. The fire is neither good nor bad. If it's a cold night and the heating fails, I will consider fire a blessing. Oh, this fire is saving my life. If there is a fire that burns my house, I will consider the fire a curse. It burned my house. Is the fire good or bad? It's just fire. So we have the free will to do good or bad. When we attain illumination, that's a different story, but it is a far cry.
Says the Sukshma Sarira or the soul, is that the same in Vedanta with the witness consciousness?
No. The Sukshma Sharira is the subtle body, and it is comprised of the Panchapranas and different aspects of the mind. And the witness, the real witness, I don't know, because it would be the buddhi or the ego, but it all depends on the context. in which you are asking this question, from what context? Yeah.
I think it's the Satchidananda is probably what he's
Yeah, so, but where is this? The Sakshi is the witness, okay, is detached. So the short answer is no, is not, they are not the same. That is the short answer, without going into too much detail. Looks like your online questions are from a philosopher. They are very
Pranams,
technical.
Maharaj. Then I just wanted to know what goes after death from one body to another.
Is the soul. Hmm? Is that from online? Then?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, is our essence, is the Atman. But also the Suksma Sharira also goes from body to body. It can be confusing, but the Suksma Sharira, the subtle body, is not the witness, but it does reincarnate from body to body, from life to life. But when we attain illumination, that Sukshma Sharira is not who we are. We are not the Sukshma Sharira. So when you say Sakshi or the witness, it's not the same as saying the subtle body.